Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Harvesting Justice podcast. Today, I am with Tasha Keirns, registered nurse and CEO of Real Options. Welcome on, Tasha. Woo, 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 woo.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, excited to be speaking with you today. And I just would love to get started on getting to know you, Tasha, on how did you first get connected with Real Options? A little bit of history of pro-life SF lore. Well, we got first connected with Real Options, our founder, in about 2017, 2018, when Teresa interned with Real Options for the summer. And I think at the time it was like a separate organization that then merged with Real Options or something like that. And but ever since that point, Real Options has been a prime referral place from PLSF people that we encounter to make life affirming decisions. So tell us a little bit of how did you yourself get connected with Real Options?
Yeah, thanks so much. So, I originally got connected with Real Options because I worked for a similar organization called Support Circle Clinics and started working with them as a staff nurse, just part time in 2018. And in 2020, we merged with Real Options and became part of Real Options. And so I
Okay.
came over as a nurse manager at that time. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so maybe it was Support Circle that Teresa interned with that then merged into Real Options. Maybe that's the missing puzzle piece to that
Perhaps.
part of the story. So I'd love to learn a little bit about what led you into the nursing field.
That's a great question. Yeah. So I was raised in a single mom agnostic household, and I actually did not become a Christian until I was 16. And
Whoa.
the day that I became a Christian, I was just on fire. I was like, if I could have lived my entire 16 years without knowing the Lord, then how many other people don't know him? And so immediately I started telling everyone about Jesus. I started telling everyone about the encounter that I had had with him. And that prompted me right into missions. And so as a teenager, I was serving in San Francisco, I was serving in San Jose with City Team and other ministries, and then started
Wow.
taking international mission trips shortly after to Mexico, to Africa a few different times for months at a time, and just fell in love with the mission field. And so once I realized that God was calling me into medicine, I wanted to combine nursing with missions. And so that is how I decided that I wanted to get connected in something that was missional, something that had a purpose, that was founded in ministry. And so I actually went to Oral Roberts University to study both theology with pastoral care with an emphasis in missions and nursing. And so it was
Wow.
after my first semester, I found out that I was pregnant, and that completely derailed everything. Not only did I feel like a hypocrite to my faith, I felt like
Mm.
letter. I felt everyone was going to judge me. I didn't even want to tell the school what had happened and why. I decided to drop out because I felt like, everyone was going to think all these things and wonder like how could she possibly have wanted to pursue missions if, she was having sex, right? And so when I found out that I was pregnant, my boyfriend at the time was incredibly supportive, but I was devastated. And when we started sharing with our small circle of influence around us, it was mixed reactions. We
Mm.
had a lot of pressure to abort the pregnancy.
Wow.
And I was told things like, you'll never amount to anything. How could you possibly even consider having this baby? You don't even have a job. How are you going to provide a life for this baby? You can't even provide a life for yourself. You'll never go back to school. You'll never become anything. And so all these thoughts were swirling around in my head, and it was just so much noise. It was so hard to process through. And so experiencing that and experiencing the anguish it caused and the life change that it had for myself and, my husband now, Patrick, who was my boyfriend at the time, when we ultimately decided to push all of that aside and choose life for our oldest son, Noah, who's now 15, we could not imagine our life without him. And that experience is what propelled me to desire to work in the obstetric space. I really wanted to work with pregnant women, especially college students, especially young women that were facing pregnancy decisions. Because, like I knew at the time, I had a passion for nursing, I had a passion for missions. I had no idea how I was going to accomplish it, but I knew that God was faithful. And so it was through the Holy Spirit, it was through His sovereignty in our life that I had the opportunity to go back to nursing school, become a registered nurse, and here we are today, right? And so it's so important that women understand, and men, that you do not have to sacrifice your purpose, your calling, your dreams, your aspirations, and parenthood. You can do both. have to be one or the other. And so that's what drove me to be with Real Options.
Wow, that's such a beautiful testimony. I've heard it before said that as women, as parents, we don't put our dreams on hold like when we have our children, that we can achieve our dreams with our children by our side. And maybe it looks a bit different, or maybe the timeline's a bit different
Yeah.
than what we
Yeah.
originally had hoped for, thought, imagine. But that we can still achieve our hopes and our dreams, the calling that God has put on our lives with our children by our side. So I love that image and that you are a living testimony of that. Can you fill in the gap for me? I'm curious, were you always pro-life?
Yeah.
Was your pregnancy a turning point in your life to become pro-life? Where were you in the pro-life, pro-choice journey, especially having been brought up agnostic?
Yeah, yeah. So God was never mentioned in my household. It was kind of one of those fairy tales that was very similar to the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy. You know, I knew
Mhm.
about Jesus, right? And I knew he died for my sins and all those things, but I didn't have any conceptual real understanding or definitely no encounters with the Lord. We didn't have a Bible in the home, nothing like that. So my mom is pro-choice. And so that was the narrative that I was raised in.
Mm,
I always felt, even before I was a Christian, that abortion wasn't something for me. Like, I never felt that I could have an abortion. But what I will say is that you never know exactly how you'll respond until it's you in that particular circumstance, right?
yeah.
And so at that time, I was pro choice. Even when I became a Christian, I was pro choice. Even when I was experiencing that pregnancy, I would have told someone, well, I'm personally pro life. I'm pro life for me. But when it comes to everyone around me, especially as a nurse or someone studying to become a nurse, right? That, it needs to be safe. It needs to be available for women. Who am I to say that a woman, shouldn't have the right to choose whatever she does in her life? But I know for me, I'm pro life. That's the view I hold. But for everyone else, that's up for them to decide. So that's how I walked. And that's how I even walked into my role as a registered nurse at Support Circle. And I was very transparent about that. Even through the interview process, even through the hiring process, I was like, look, this is where I stand. I'm
Wow.
against it. I think it's biblical. It's not political, it's a biblical issue and I'm against it, but, I would never prevent someone else from being able to make that choice. And so it wasn't actually after working in this space, for a couple years, I would say, where God really started to do a work on my heart and my
Wow.
perspective completely shifted.
Wow, that's so interesting. So tell me a little bit about how did you discover Support Circle and how long have you been now with Support Circle that later became Real
Yeah.
Options?
Yeah, so that's great. I actually found out about Support Circle through an ad in my church's bulletin at the time.
Cool.
So Support Circle had an ad that they were seeking a mission-minded registered nurse that wanted to serve the Bay Area and work
Ding,
with
ding, ding.
that were struggling with difficult pregnancy decisions. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. Like, this is it, right? Because here I was a registered nurse. I already had a son. And so by that point, by the time I graduated, he was 7. And it was so sweet. He actually pinned me in the nursing pinning ceremony. It was such a
Oh,
precious
I bet that was so beautiful.
yeah. Yeah. And I was pregnant with my second at the time.
Wow.
And so, yeah, being able to find that opportunity listed in my church bulletin, I immediately, contacted them and that's how the process got started. And so then from that point on, I worked with Support Circle for about, it was 2018. So it was about 2.5 years or so, almost 3 years before we officially merged with Real Options. And I was on maternity leave at the time with my third son when we started the merger process. So then I officially came back as a Real Options staff member, as a nurse manager in March of 2021.
Nice. And now you're CEO. How long have you been the
Yeah.
CEO?
Yeah, yeah. So my journey is interesting. I've been CEO since July 1st of last year, so almost 1 year now. And when I came over from Support Circle, I was nurse manager, and then shortly after that, there was an opening for director of nursing. And so then I was plugged in as director of nursing over our 5 clinics at the time, and did that for several years until I became executive director. And then worked with our CEO who was planning her succession transition process to work under her to start taking on more responsibilities operationally and with development, and then moved into the role when she officially started her retirement process. Yeah.
Nice. Can you tell me a little bit, maybe paint the picture of what is a day in the life working at Real Options like? I'd love to also know, like, what's it like when you encounter women and serve them? I'd love to get a
Yeah.
maybe a glimpse behind the curtain of what's
Sure.
going on.
Sure. Well,
behind the
since we
scenes?
have, 3 branches of our ministry, a day in the life looks very different depending on what area,
Mhm.
we're just talking about. If you're talking about me specifically as CEO, it's always different. There's always something
Sure.
going on, and I absolutely love that. There's a lot of email communication, there's a lot of communication with our supporters, which is such beautiful work to be able to connect with them and hear their heart and their passion for life and for the Lord and the mission work that we're doing. Because again, as we wouldn't be able to do any of this work without those who are supporting us. And so
Mhm.
often I hear supporters say, well, you're on the front lines. Like you're the one doing the work. Like who am I? I'm insignificant. Like it's really you, right? Who's doing everything. And I love to flip that narrative, right? And say, no, actually, there's no difference between you and I because I
Mhm.
wouldn't have the ability, I wouldn't be enabled to do this work if it wasn't for you being obedient to the Lord and the calling
Mm.
that He's placed in your life to give, whether
Yeah.
that be prayer, time, financially, whatever it is, a skill they
Yeah.
might have, or connections to a contractor or to this if we have a special project, right? It's all relative. We are just one cog in this big wheel in this
Yeah.
vision that the Lord has for life. And so being able to flip that is such an honor for me as well. And then, speaking engagements, variety of different things that occur. And then just operationally, you have all the nitty gritty, right, of running an organization. But I will say I'm fortunate because I still have the opportunity to meet with patients. And so I love that being in the clinic. And so for me as a registered nurse in the clinic, a day in the life, would look variant depending on what our schedule is, whether we have prenatal in the clinic that day, whether it's a male coming in for STD testing or treatment, whether we're serving a pregnant woman who's considering abortion, right? And listening to her experiences and giving her a safe place to process that because realistically, we may be the first person that has ever sat across from her that's
Yeah.
given her the respect to really listen to her viewpoints, depending on,
Mm.
what life circumstances that she's come on and, her opinions and just validating, what she's feeling. It's so important for them to just be able to process where they're at. Because when you are in a crisis moment, you're not thinking clearly, you're not processing clearly. So if you have someone come alongside and support you, to just allow you to work through those thoughts and emotions, and really de-escalate that mindset
Yeah.
is where really, the Holy Spirit moves and God is able to come in and that woman is able to begin to see outside of the fog, right? And
Mhm.
really start to process what it is and understand what she wants and trying to block out all the noise around her, whether it's positive or negative, just to focus in to make whatever decision is, best.
Mhm. I know you said that there's, like, 3 different
Yeah.
ministry branches within
Yeah.
Real Options. What are those 3?
Yeah. So the first is prevention. And so that is our education department. And so our education department is serving local schools, both public and private, through a risk avoidance curriculum. And we call that
Nice.
program Real Talk. And so they're
Real
going
talk.
in, and they're going into schools and focusing on healthy relationships and students being able to understand who they are, identifying what a toxic relationship looks like, identifying how to receive love, how to give love, how to move around in bullying, and the effects of pornography and sexting, all these various things that our culture is throwing at them, right? And things
Yeah.
that they're experiencing from such a young age. How to stay safe online, right? How to move and navigate, how to have a social media platform that's healthy. It's such good content that our students really need, and it helps give them just a life affirming biblical perspective on how to navigate life, right? Then our second branch is our intervention branch, and that's where our program comes in with our 4 medical clinics that we have in the Bay Area. We have 2 in San Jose, one that's more downtown, one on the east side, then one in Union City and one in Oakland. And that's where we have the opportunity to serve both men and women that are facing these difficult pregnancy decisions. In addition to our medical clinics, our intervention branch of the ministry also has our college campus outreach program. And so that's where we're on campus weekly, tabling in the quads with student led clubs on San Jose State,
Nice.
UC Berkeley, and then other campuses around the area so that they also have somewhere to go for support if they're facing an unintended pregnancy, if they want information on body literacy, if they, need any support on campus. That's where we can come in and serve them. Which is so critical because I'm not sure if you're aware, but back a couple of years ago, actually in 2023, there was a law that was enacted where every state and UC campus was required to distribute the abortion pill through the student health center. So
Yeah.
realistically, every UC and state school has become an abortion provider. So it is so
Wow.
important that we have life affirming services on our campus to help students not only navigate that decision, but then if they do choose life, how do you navigate the school system? How do you know your rights as a parent?
Yeah.
And what you're eligible for to take leave and to come back and all your doctor's appointments and everything postpartum. So it's so incredibly important that we're there as well. And then lastly, our third branch of ministry is our restoration branch. So that is our
Nice.
reproductive loss support, where we hold hope conferences, we have weekly support groups, we do grief workshops, and we're really just there to support women and men who have had any kind of reproductive loss, whether that strictly be abortion or miscarriage, infertility, adoption placement, stillbirth. It's the whole gamut, right?
Mm.
Because it's all affecting your overall health. And it's so important that there is support to ensure that they're not only able to walk through life without that guilt and shame that they may carry from any of those things, but really start to receive that healing that's found in Christ.
Wow. So what's the first one?
Mention.
Education, intervention,
So yeah. So the first one's prevention
prevention, intervention,
and restoration.
restoration.
Yep.
Wow. Threefold
Yep.
approach. I love that.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear now about the connection with abortion pill reversal. How did you first learn about APR and how was that first maybe incorporated into real options?
Yeah. So back before I was part of Real Options started providing abortion pill reversal in 2016. And so,
Nice.
yeah,
So
I think
10 years.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, and I think to help frame that, let's just briefly talk about what it is, right? And then
Yeah.
we my connection with that too. So to understand abortion pill reversal, yes, there is something you can do to reverse an abortion. But to understand that, taking a look at what the abortion pill itself is, which is a little deceptive already in the name abortion pill. It makes it sound like it's one pill, which is
Yeah.
it's two separate medications, and it's usually over the span of at least 8 hours apart, but generally 24, sometimes even 48 hours later. So the first medication that is taken is called mifepristone, and essentially what that does is it blocks progesterone from getting to the developing baby, right? Then the second medication, misoprostol, that's taken to start causing uterine contractions to, have a premature labor, essentially, to deliver that baby, right? And so with abortion pill reversal, if you catch a woman in between those two pills who has taken the first pill, mifepristone, and all of a sudden realized, what did I just do? What is this? I wasn't even sure if I was ready yet. I want to stop, the abortion process. Then you can intercede there, right? You can intervene with taking progesterone. And so it's really simple science. It's not complicated at all. Progesterone is a natural hormone inside our bodies that helps to sustain pregnancy. And so all that we do is give them a high dose back of bioidentical progesterone to help keep those levels nice and high where they should be to support pregnancy, to counteract the effect of mifepristone, that first abortion pill that blocks progesterone, right? So it's a natural antidote to that medication. You're just giving more of the body back what it naturally has, just to overwhelm the effect of that first pill and hopefully stop it before it takes effect. And so abortion pill reversal is such a beautiful option for women because unfortunately I've heard time and time again through patient testimonies where they go to an abortion provider, let's say Planned Parenthood or FPA, or even a local hospital, right, that's providing abortion. And when they arrive at their abortion pill appointment, they think that they're taking those pills home and they get to determine the day and time that they start their abortion. But then what they're confronted with, especially at Planned Parenthood in particular, is when they go in, they don't realize that they have to take those first pills there on site. And then they go home with the second set. And so then they panic, right? And if they're told, "Oh, we're booked up, you won't get an appointment for another week," they're frantic. They don't know what to do. They don't want to wait that long, but they weren't ready. Let's say it's a Tuesday morning and they weren't planning on doing it until Friday because they wanted to abort over the weekend, right? To
Mm.
give them time to recover before work or school.
Yeah.
And so when they're standing there, they're in a panic and they take the pills. And then I can't even tell you how many patients, over at least 15 that I've had personally that tell me that they ran out of the abortion provider. They tried to make themselves throw up in the parking lot. Maybe they did
Mm.
throw up a little bit, but they're not sure if anything came out or if enough of it came out, or they couldn't make
Mm.
themselves throw up because they were too nervous, but they didn't want to start it. They weren't ready. And some have a complete change of heart where they're saying, "I don't know what I just did. This was wrong. I have to stop this. I have to save my baby." And then you have others who say, I just wasn't ready. I don't even know if this is what I really want yet. I wasn't prepared,
Mhm.
right? They just didn't have the time to fully process that decision. And
Gosh,
so
yeah.
that's where abortion pill reversal comes in. These women matter. And
Mhm.
it's such an available opportunity for them to take back that control of choice and have that bodily autonomy, right? That everyone is always talking about and highly debating, and make that choice to continue their pregnancy and not be forced to complete an abortion that they no longer consent to.
Wow. To speak to my own experience with bioidentical progesterone, I actually began progesterone before I was ever even married, just to help balance my hormones and to feel healthier, happier in the luteal phase, to have a longer luteal
Uh-huh.
phase. I used to have cycles that were like 23, 24 days long, which is very much on the short side of a healthy cycle length. And I began working with a NAPRO doctor who prescribed NAPRO technology, stands for a natural procreative technology, who prescribed me bioidentical progesterone. And gosh, it was like night and day, the symptoms that I used to experience with having low progesterone to having the bioidentical progesterone. And when I was pregnant with my son, early on in pregnancy, I also was on
Yeah.
bioidentical progesterone because I was showing to have some lower progesterone levels, and it only ever helped me, never hurt me. And I don't know, I'm just speaking as someone who was a consumer,
Yeah.
a client, like who benefited from progesterone, of just the thought of why is this so controversial? Like
Yeah,
the
it's
thought
just
of,
progesterone,
yeah,
right? That's all it is, and
yeah.
God created our bodies, right,
Hmm.
with this hormone, and it's so necessary for so many things, and I mean, women take it, like you're saying, for a variety of reasons, and one of the most prominent reasons that we see in the obstetric community is for women who have had past repeated miscarriages,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
So, anytime there's a threatened miscarriage, which is how a pregnancy would be classified after taking the first abortion pill, mifepristone,
yeah.
right? Because that pregnancy is threatened, right? Because mifepristone blocks progesterone. And in order for that pregnancy to be sustained, it needs an adequate flow of progesterone. Those progesterone levels need to stay nice and high to supplement everything it needs. So when you introduce a medication that has those effects, right, it now becomes a threatened pregnancy. And so with that, any threatened miscarriage, any woman who has a history of miscarriage, anyone like you explained as well, who just starts their levels start dipping and the doctors want to see that a little bit higher just to ensure that there's no risk of miscarriage there. They give progesterone. It's safe, it's natural, it's bioidentical, it's derived from yams, right? Like this is
Yeah.
nothing that's, synthetically created in a lab, with some crazy symptoms associated with it. This is something that women are taking very regularly, especially in the obstetric community. And so the controversy around it, really, if you look at the science, even though it's being claimed that the science is not accurate, that it's not proven, it's not real, the science is very, very simple. So we know that at a deeper level, this is really not about the science. This is really about our culture and how our culture is pro death, right? Especially here in California. That's what we're up against. And so, right now, with the lawsuit that Real Options is facing, right, that's really what we see going on here. Even though the California Attorney General, Rob Bonta, sued, Heartbeat International and Real Options under a business code violation of, quote, false advertising, right? They're claiming that this is medical misinformation. We know that that's not really what this is about. We also
Mhm.
know that this really isn't about choice, right? Because if California truly is a pro-choice state, then, they should be in favor of abortion pill reversal because this is a woman's second chance at choice. In their view, she should be able to choose to start her abortion process. Well, then also, shouldn't she be able to choose to stop it, right? If
Mhm.
she knows what she is moving up towards, if she has the opportunity to try a treatment that we relay as 64 to 68 effective, and she opts into that, it is her body, her choice to be able to move forward with saving her pregnancy, which is so incredibly important. And so we know those few truths there. But lastly, what we're really facing here, again, is not the science. We're facing government censorship
Mm.
because it's really that we don't follow the narrative of the pro choice movement, that we don't follow the narrative of our pro-death culture, right? And so that's really what we're facing, because if the government were to accept APR, abortion pill reversal, as it is, that would mean they'd have to accept a variety of things that unravels their narrative, such
Mhm.
as abortion is unsafe, such as, women regret their abortion,
Yeah.
right? That this
Women
isn't
change
about
their mind.
women change their mind, that this isn't about women empowerment or women's liberation, right? Because if abortion pill reversal is real and women are doing it and it's safe and effective, right? That starts to unravel everything that's been woven.
Yeah. Something that comes to mind for me as someone that's been doing sidewalk outreach for many years, that in the abortion movement, I feel like there's all this messaging of women are strong, women are capable. We need free and safe abortions, and don't question us, that we know what we're doing when we seek abortions. And then yet, when I'm trying to give a brochure to a potential abortion seeking client on the sidewalk outside of Planned Parenthood, there's physical interception by the abortion volunteers, by the Planned Parenthood volunteers or the Planned Parenthood security, wanting to stop that interaction of alternative information. And it just makes me think, like, hold up. If women are so strong and capable, why won't you let this interaction happen? Why won't you let this simple conversation happen? And I'm just bringing this up of the thought of, like, hold up. If women are strong and capable and intelligent, what is so wrong of if a woman changes her mind to have a second chance at choice? What is wrong? Why can't she know about, have access to abortion pill reversal? Why is that so? Are women strong and capable and intelligent and are perfectly capable of making informed decisions, or not? Are you trying to control the narrative, like you're saying?
Right. And that's so true, Melanie. I mean, it's actually ridiculous if you think about it,
Yeah.
because they're saying that, women are empowered, they're strong, they're brave, they're courageous to have their abortion. But like you mentioned, you've seen it on the sidewalk, and we're seeing it here with this lawsuit, right? Because what
Mhm.
they're essentially saying is that, this is experimental, and how dare us, right, give women hope? How dare us give them an opportunity to take progesterone, which we've already thoroughly explained is very safe, is used for so many different things, and is the natural antidote to an anti-progesterone medication,
Yeah.
right? So it's, if women know that studies have been done, that thousands of babies have been born, right? That there are minimal side effects of progesterone. I mean, they may experience the effect of the abortion pill mifepristone, right? If their progesterone levels are not high enough, and if mifepristone is successful, if their abortion is successful, they're going to have bleeding. They're going to experience all the symptoms that they were educated about as far as the abortion pill itself goes. But the progesterone is not going to cause them any significant damage or harm. We know it's safe. Everyone recognizes that progesterone is safe. And so 64 to 68 is a lot higher than zero,
Yeah.
right? And we know based on the studies that mifepristone itself, the first abortion pill, it's anywhere from 8 to 24% failure rate. Right. So what that means is that if you take mifepristone by itself and you don't take anything else, right, then there's 8 to 24% that your pregnancy will continue without any further intervention, meaning that mifepristone itself failed. So if the studies have shown, that's a widespread, everyone is more, you can hear a variety of opinions on that, but the main studies show between 8 to 24%. Well, then how do you explain the 64 to 68% if it's not progesterone that's intervening? Right? That's nonsensical. We know that it's because of the progesterone that there's that huge gap, right, in success that we're seeing there, that huge increase. And so internationally, over 8,000 babies have been born from abortion pill reversal. And even here with us, just in our Bay Area organization, our ministry here, we've had 46 babies born, and
Mhm.
that includes 3 sets of twins. And we currently have 5 women who have completed their treatment, who are pregnant and thriving and due, to deliver anywhere between August and November of this year. And so we just
Wow.
continue seeing this have success without any harm, without any, increased instance of birth defects. There is none of that, just simply because of the way, the mechanism of action of the medication and their interaction together. So we are just so excited to see how successful this has been, and how women, this is really empowering them, right? These women are courageous. This is giving them back their choice,
Yeah.
right? Because in what other medical, procedure is someone forced to complete it if they no longer want to
Wow.
continue,
That
regardless of the
sounds
effects,
like
right?
medical coercion to me.
Right, right. And so if, like, let's say you're in the middle of a treatment plan, you decide halfway you wanna stop, they can't force you
Yeah.
to continue on with that treatment. They could advise you otherwise, right? But it's your discretion. You have autonomy as the patient to make that decision,
Yeah.
right? And so if a woman has started this procedure, right? If they started the abortion pill and she says, "Hey, I don't wanna do this anymore," and she's advised, well, abortion pill reversal is not FDA approved. Okay, that's correct. That's factual. It's not. It's not FDA approved. This is an off-label use of progesterone. That's not uncommon,
There's so many
right?
off-label uses of medicine all the time. Like, I remember when
Exactly.
I had just had my son, I took some off-label use of what was it called? Domperidone? Some medicine to help with increasing my milk supply, but the medication itself is not intended for that. Like, I was using it for the off-label
Right.
use, like, that happens all the time.
All the time, all the time. And if she's given all the information, she's seen the studies, she's seen the statistics, and she's willing, it's her decision to make.
Yeah.
Who is the state, right, to say that women should be prevented from this? It's not up to them to decide that. This should be up to every individual patient. And just because abortion pill reversal doesn't fit their narrative, right, that doesn't mean that abortion pill reversal is not credible, right?
Yeah.
Abortion pill reversal is credible science. The science is
Mhm.
so simple. Progesterone is so simple. You
Yeah.
know, there is no risk, there is no fear here.
Yeah.
And even though they're trying to make a claim that there is, and they're using a study even from UC Davis, right, that had to be halted due to safety concerns as one of their main, founding pieces of evidence, you know, it is safe, it is credible, babies are being saved.
Yeah.
And I would also say so are the women and so are the men, right? The parents of these babies and the generations to come from these
Mhm.
pregnancies. That is the beauty of abortion pill reversal.
Yeah, I believe that when you save a baby, it's possible you're saving generations. Generations, we'll never know about till we meet our maker.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure, I think it was sometime last year, that the San Francisco Archdiocese held a Respect Life Pro Life conference. And I got to meet, I believe his name is Dr. George, the founder
Mhm.
of the APR protocol.
Yes.
And also at that conference, Tammy Mahaney spoke, who I know works at Real Options and really has a heart for serving women and helping with the APR protocol. And Tammy had this special guest who is a mother whose baby is alive today thanks to the APR protocol. And so
Yeah.
it was amazing for me, first time in my life, to get to see a baby in real life who was saved thanks to this awesome regimen. Like, that was just I'd never seen that before as a pro-lifer who's
Right.
been doing this for almost a decade, and just a lot of activism and outreach on the sidewalk. A lot of majority of my work is the unknown of, like, I don't know what happens next when I give a client a brochure. I don't know what happens next if they really went to the pregnancy center or not. It's a mystery for me, and I've left it up to God. Like, well, it's not about me. I really don't need to know that. I'm just doing what the Lord has asked me. But it was just so amazing to get to
Yeah.
see this miracle of a child that's
Mhm.
alive today thanks to this medicine.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
great.
actually just saw an email earlier this morning, since I'm subscribed to different abortion movement emails, and it was talking about the misoprostol only abortion chemical method of not even including the mifepristone to cut off progesterone, but just using misoprostol to induce contractions and to give birth to a born alive baby, which is just so scary to me. It's so terrifying how rampant these abortion pills are, that they can just be ordered online. You don't have to even do any pregnancy verification or gestational verification, and you can keep them in your bathroom cabinet, use them on your rainy day if there's an oopsie. And gosh, it's just so scary how common they are, if that's even right to say, and that there's now this push, this movement of misoprostol only abortions. I'd love to hear maybe your nurse lens, your take on that, especially from all your work with women throughout the years.
Yeah, yeah, it's really unfortunate, right? And if all of this is about women's health, right? This is now we're going into territory where this is not safe for women. Like this
Yeah.
is not women's health care, right? This is damaging. And so not only physically but emotionally too, right? Because as you mentioned, they will see a live baby born, right? And now it depends on exactly how the abortion completes, if it comes out, in segments or if it comes out complete.
Yeah.
But
In full.
regardless, this is a real possibility. I mean, you see this sometimes even with mifepristone and misoprostol, right? And so
Mhm.
misoprostol only, not only does it eliminate the possibility of abortion pill reversal almost entirely, right? But in addition to that, you can actually have a baby be born and you can pick it up in your hand and it would fit in the palm of your hand generally if it's 10 weeks or under. And you'll see that heart beating until it slows down and stops. And that's the
Goodness.
reality. It's devastating. That's
Yeah.
horrific for anyone to experience. Some women even experience that in a natural miscarriage, right? And it's
Mhm.
horrific. And the fact that it's being pushed and there are studies being done now where they're trying to even extend the age of gestation, right? The level of development of these babies, to push it further into pregnancy would just mean that women would be, aborting bigger babies at home. So that is going to bring a host of complications and concerns in and of itself as well. Right. And so it's devastating for them to package this as something, of convenience and of empowerment, and something beautiful because you can just live your best life and, go back to this when you're ready. Right. And just keep, sleeping around without consequence. Right. Because you can just get rid of it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
All of those things are just so twisted and it's so sad. It's so disheartening to see, as a medical professional, it's disheartening to see as a woman. It's disheartening to see as, someone that's pro-life and that's fighting not only for the life of the baby but the life of the mother, right? She matters too. They're both so impacted by these decisions that are being made and the directions that they're, being going. But hey, that's what this movement is about, right? They are so deceptive and it's so sad. One thing I definitely want to talk
Yeah.
with you about right before our time is over today is that trial that I mentioned.
Yes.
UC Davis study itself. So that was done by a Dr. Mitchell Crennan, and he's an abortionist. He's a longtime career abortionist, and his study was used as the catalyst for some of the evidence, even in our case itself. And the reality is that the headlines all stated, that abortion pill reversal study halted due to safety concerns, right? Abortion pill reversal is unsafe. Look at this study. Do this. They had to be stopped due to safety concerns. But the reality is, if you dig into the details of that study, the biggest safety concerns of their very, very small sample size were the women who got the placebo. So what that means is that this was a controlled randomized trial, right? Where you had a group that received progesterone and a group that received a placebo. And it was the women who received the placebo who had some of the more significant effects, right? They were experiencing the effects of the mifepristone, of a completing abortion, because they did not receive progesterone. In fact, every woman who received progesterone in that trial, their babies survived. So what their study actually showed was that mifepristone was dangerous and abortion pill reversal was effective.
Works.
Wow, shocking, right?
Surprise, surprise.
Now, I will say the unfortunate reality, though, the reason why this study was ethical was because all of these women were pursuing abortion. So every one of these women opted into this trial knowing that
Mm.
even if their baby survived, they would still go and
They would,
complete the
yeah.
abortion, right? Because that's another issue, right? Is that, in our lawsuit, they're saying that the case series that was done, with over 700 women, showing this 64 to 68% success rate of abortion pill reversal is not the most credible form of scientific study, right? That a randomized controlled trial, a double blind trial, a study being done in that sense is the ideal study, which is agreed upon. That's fact. That is known. It is important that you have studies of that caliber. But in the world of obstetrics, you cannot ethically complete studies to that caliber in most cases on pregnant women. That's why you always see when there's medications or there's therapies or there's treatment, they say not tested on pregnant women,
Yeah.
not tested on pregnant women, right? Because it's unethical. You could harm the baby, you could harm the woman, right? You can't study that way. But because Crennan came along and did this on a very small sample size, and it was halted due to safety concerns, they're not explaining what those safety concerns were in detail. They're just saying abortion pill reversal is unsafe, right? And they're failing to mention that those who experienced the side effects, were that of the placebo group.
Mhm. Can you kind of summarize for me what is at stake with the state of California versus Heartbeat International and Real Options Obria Clinic's trial? In my understanding, in my layman's view words, I'm understanding that that this fight is not a battle of Real Options being able to do the APR protocol. The battle is over Real Options being able to advertise the APR protocol. And it's specific to Real Options somehow being able to garner support from partners to want to further support the work of Real Options by Real Options advertising that they do APR, that is somehow the abortion industry is taking fault with that. Can you kind of just summarize for me what is at stake and what is this battle of the state of California versus Heartbeat and Real Options?
Sure. Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. So this is a matter of a business code violation for false advertising. So this does have to do with our advertising of APR, not the actual medical science, although that's being hotly debated through depositions and will be in this, the witness testimony in the trial itself. But the actual lawsuit is surrounding the way that we're advertising. So because we say it's a treatment that's available, it's safe and effective, right? They are saying that that is medical misinformation, that because this has not
Mm.
been proven from their perspective, that the science is not credible from their perspective, right? They are saying that this is medical misinformation and therefore false advertising. Now, the tricky thing here that you're mentioning about the advertising and about us fundraising and how that's all connected is if this is non-commercial speech, which is what we are saying it is, because we are a nonprofit, APR patients do not get charged anything. We do not bill insurance to APR patients when they are undergoing APR treatment. The only thing that they may pay for is if they opt to get the progesterone from the pharmacy
Mm.
and they use their insurance to get the progesterone from the pharmacy, or they may pay cash. If they don't have insurance, we can either help them get insurance or they can, we can give them a good RX coupon or something of the sort to lower the costs and they can pay out of pocket. Now, if that happens, we actually offer to reimburse the cost in cash. So if they come to their next appointment with that receipt, we'll give them cash back for that prescription that they paid for, right?
Mm.
But again, that is outside the context of their relationship with Real Options, right? That would be between them and the pharmacy. So there's no cost for women that are undergoing this treatment at APR. They don't pay for their visits, their ultrasounds, nothing. And so because of that, it's non-commercial speech. However, the Attorney General's office is arguing that this speech is commercial. And the basis for that argument is because we are a nonprofit and we fundraise. And when we fundraise, we talk about APR. Of course, right? Because that's one of the services we offer.
Like
Even,
any nonprofit, you're gonna talk about the good work you're doing.
of course, yeah,
Like,
the charity that we are, right? And
guilty
so
as charged, Your Honor. I'm a nonprofit that talks about the work that I do.
right, but because we do, that doesn't mean that the speech is commercial, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what our legal team, we're being represented by Thomas More Society. They have been
What?
absolutely amazing. And, they're going to just knock it out of the park. They're going to do such a great job fighting that battle, right? Because this is not commercial speech. The services are free to the patients. Yes, we fundraise. We are a nonprofit, but
Like
I
any
mean,
other
they're
nonprofit.
they're claiming, and I appreciate you for coming in for that court support, in our pretrial hearing. And even in that hearing, they were claiming that there's an economic incentive for us to be fundraising with abortion pill reversal, right? And it's so hilarious to me that that is their standpoint because we see on average maybe 15 to 20 abortion pill reversal patients a year, okay? And we have over 3,000, right? 36 over 3,600 unique patients that are coming in for
Wow.
over 9,000 appointments over all four of our clinics.
Mm,
15 to 20 of
that's
our
such a small
patients.
percentage of your
Exactly.
overall.
Yeah,
Science.
it's bizarre to me. It is one of the services we offer. We are so thankful for the opportunity to offer this service. It is something that women should have informed consent about when they're contemplating taking the abortion pill. Everyone should be informed that reversal is an option because although they're not thinking about reversal in that moment, of course, they're taking the pill. You don't know how you're going to feel once it happens, right? And even in our lawsuit, if you read the original lawsuit that came out, which I will say, Bonta released it to the press 8 days before we were even served. So we even found out about the lawsuit because our phones were ringing off the hook in all our clinics in our administrative office for media wanting to comment. And we
Oh,
didn't even know what we were
wow.
being
What a
sued
way to
for.
find out.
Exactly. It's just it is so incredibly important, right, that women are given this information in advance because again, you don't know how you will feel after you take that pill. Nobody does. But if you read the lawsuit, it actually says that 0.004% of women change their mind or might have a regret, right, of after taking the abortion pill, which I'm paraphrasing there, but that was the statistics they used was 0.004%. I was like, where is that even coming from to begin with? Because obviously it's not coming from any of our sources of all the women who've contacted us, other APR providers nationally, even internationally, or
Mm,
even Heartbeat International, right?
mhm,
But let's just play their game and let's say, okay, let's say it's 0.004. Do those women not matter?
mhm.
I thought all women mattered. I thought
No.
their choice mattered in every circumstance. So even if it was that small of a percentage, which it's not, but even if it was, what about them?
Mhm.
Right? What about them and their emotional well-being and their mental well-being and the state of their pregnancy and their desired, right? Because from their perspective, this clearly the pro-choice movement wantedness is determining value, clearly. Whereas the pro-life movement would say, no, wantedness doesn't determine value and the
Yeah.
wantedness doesn't give human rights, right? You have human rights because you are human. You
You're
have
human.
distinct DNA. You are a human being. So therefore your rights start from the moment of conception,
Yeah.
right? And so regardless if a woman's wantedness factor changes once she starts her abortion, now she wants her pregnancy now, doesn't that matter? Doesn't that
Yeah.
life matter in their perspective? Shouldn't she be given access to stop that process? Well, from their perspective, the answer is no. Otherwise, they wouldn't be fighting us in court,
Yeah.
right? They wouldn't be trying to censor how we advertise and how women find out about this treatment, right? And it is so critical that, we continue to stand firm and go up against, the California Attorney General and
Yeah.
fight this battle in court because women matter, their preferences matter, choice matters, and it's so important that women are given that opportunity through abortion pill reversal.
Yes. Preach. So, Tasha, tell us what is next with this court case and how can we viewers support further the work of Real Options? How can we go to learn more?
Great. Yeah. Well, our trial date has shifted all over the place. And so we have now settled. Currently, the trial is set to begin on June 24th, which is a big date, right? I don't think it's a coincidence that our trial is starting on June 24th, midweek, I might add, because that will be the 4-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision where Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
you can determine for yourself if you think that's coincidence or not.
Wow.
But
June 24th is also the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, if I'm
boom,
remembering that correctly. So that'll be a
boom.
powerful date.
Yeah, so that's when we'll start. It's projected to last roughly 6 weeks, depending on testimony and everything else. We'll be in court Monday through Thursday. And so, of course, we'd absolutely love your prayers. That is the biggest thing that we could ask for those in the faith community to be praying for us, to be praying for the Lord's will to be done through this case. And depending on the result of this local trial, this is a trial by judge. And so there will be no jury. Once the judge makes his final determination, if we win, praise the Lord, fabulous. We'll continue on as normal. If we do not at the local level, which there's a possibility, of course, for that, right? This is a liberal state. It's a liberal attorney general, right? And here we are in Alameda County with very pro-choice opinions. And so we'll see. We'll see what ultimately happens. But if we do lose at the local level, then of course we start the appeal process. So the California Supreme Court, the Ninth Circuit, if we don't have success in either of those, then the trajectory goes all the way to the Supreme Court. And so we are looking forward to this process. Whatever the Lord has in store for us, we'll be obedient and we will follow this out and follow this through because we know ultimately in the end, right, that life is going to come out on top, that we will be victorious in this trial and that women will still have the opportunity to save their babies if they so choose. And so that's the trajectory of the case itself.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is an exciting time.
Yeah. And so if you'd like more information, if you want to get connected, feel free to visit us at friendsofrealoptions.net. That is our supporter webpage where we'll have all the updates and information. Feel free to, browse through that. My contact information is on that site. Everything is there. If you'd like to see our organization patient facing site, which, allows you access to any of our services, whether it be through our education services, if you're interested in us coming out to your schools, or if you need services yourself, for anything that we provide in the clinics, we would love to have you as a patient. You can go to realoptions.net, and that's where you'll find everything there.
Nice. Yeah. Education, intervention, restoration, the three tiers of Real Options Obria. Love that. And this is such an exciting time as Pro Life San Francisco to continue to get to do court support for our fellow local pro lifers navigating the local California court system because just a few months ago, recently, a couple months back, finally, after almost a decade long battle, the court case of the last remaining charges of the pro life undercover journalist David Daleiden, who exposed that indeed Planned Parenthood does buy and sell baby body parts from abortions, was finally dismissed. So it was such
Yeah.
an interesting time for us. As one case closed, another has begun. And so our court support continues. And as the Harvesting Justice podcast, we do have a heart to be fighting against fetal organ harvesting. So I encourage anyone listening to please go to ethicalresearchnow.org, take the action step to contact all the leaders within the UC California system to demand for an end to fetal organ harvesting and for ethical research now. So thank you again, Tasha, for coming on the Harvesting Justice podcast brought to you by Pro Life San Francisco. Do you have any last parting words of wisdom you'd like to share?
Well, it was such an honor to be able to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for having us. And, we are just so grateful to be in this fight for life. And we will continue to stand in the courtroom against the state of California so that women and babies can continue to be protected and empowered to make their own decisions.
Absolutely. And we are happy to be in this fight for life alongside you. And we are also happy to be referring people to Real Options through our work on the sidewalk and through our pro-life brochures that lead people to our life affirming directory website with all of the nonviolent, life-giving choices, resources that we have discovered in the Bay Area on our website called bayareareprocare.com, which is what we give out on our brochures on the sidewalk. And yeah, we're happy that you exist in the Bay Area as a resource for people. And we are happy that we get to point people to your awesome ministry and to be alongside this fight with you. Well, thank you so much, Tasha, again for coming on the Harvesting Justice podcast. And until next time, over and out. Okay, I just pressed the stop button.
All right.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, that was great. You speak so well. I feel like you're so